being honest with yourself and seeing those qualities, admitting and accepting those qualities that you maybe didn't want to deal with throughout your life, or you were feeling ashamed of, or they made you feel less than, and looking those flaws, or dragons I like to call them, in the eye, and realizing that you are what you are in part thanks to those qualities as well. And if you go even further down that road, eventually you discover that actually your true value lies in those things which were so hard to accept maybe before. Very often it's our struggles and our challenges that give us that value that we have to carry to the world. So I believe that those dragons or those flaws, they're not your enemies, they're our friends if you have the courage to work with them properly.
Today's guest is the fabulous Kristina Mand-Lakhiani, an international speaker, entrepreneur, artist, philanthropist, and mother of 2 kids. As a co-founder of Mindvalley, a leading publisher in the personal growth industry, Kristina dedicated the last 17 years of her career from teachers like Michael Beckwith, Bob Proctor, Lisa Nichols, and many more. She started her career in a government office in her native Estonia, and in her mid-20s achieved a level of success mostly known to male politicians at the end of their careers. It was shortly after that Kristina and her husband Vishen founded Mindvalley. Kristina also is the author of 3 transformational quests: 7 Days to Happiness, Live by Your Own Rules, and The Art of Being Flawesome. Kristina talks about her personal transformation, authenticity, understanding and accepting oneself, and a path of happiness. In June, Kristina releases her brand new book, Becoming Flawesome. In her book, Kristina shares her own journey of being on top of a personal growth empire like Mindvalley to stepping aside, consciously uncoupling from her husband and walking her path towards being more honest with herself. Welcome, Kristina.
Thank you, Anita, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I'm so excited for this. So, what is one of the most courageous things you have done after reading that? Can you possibly pick one?
Oh, wow, it is a surprise. I wonder. I think life is a succession of decisions that we make, and whether they're courageous or not probably is defined by our perception of the risks ahead. So just to give some clarification, I was born in Soviet Union and I was a teenager when it collapsed and a lot of things changed. So something which was my reality for all my life then suddenly turned upside down. So I guess my perception of risk was very different from general public. So I would say that as soon as I got into real life from school, I started making courageous decisions about career, about getting married to a person so different from me in so many aspects, moving to New York, leaving my career behind. So it's been like this throughout my life. But what I've noticed is that with age, it's a little scarier to take those courageous decisions because our perception of risks becomes a little different. And also with the responsibilities, once you have children, mortgage, all of that, you suddenly stop risking.
Yeah, definitely I can understand all of that. What took you on your journey of becoming a leading publisher in the personal growth industry?
Well, in my personal case, it was just a chance. That wasn't something which I was planning. As you mentioned when you were reading my bio out, I started in the government and I studied politics, in fact. And yes, my career was very quick, but that was also a peculiarity of Estonia, which had just become independent. So we had nowhere to take people, but the young people who had the courage to experiment and to try new things. So personal growth and business definitely were not the paths that I envisioned for myself, but because I was married with Vision at that time and that was his passion, I just helped him along, and that's how I ended up in personal growth industry. It was chance. Of course, now 20 years down the road, it's a choice, not a chance anymore. How we became leading publisher. I think it's persistence and faith in what we were doing, because we started small, like everybody, and yes, we grew. We worked with amazing people, and we just matured.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's a great place to be in, to be able to do that, for sure. Self-development. Kristina, you believe life is too important to take seriously and make sure to bring fun into every one of the roles as a teacher, mother, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and your world traveler. Tell me more about that, please.
Well, actually, it's a quote by Oscar Wilde, and I think Wilde is an amazing author. He has a lot of life wisdom, although, of course, he's a little bit cynical, which I guess makes him appealing to a lot of people. But he's absolutely right. Life is too important to be taken seriously, and I think we very often are paralyzed by our own fears and seriousness to the point when we don't enjoy it. But in the end of the day, that's the only thing we have. So if we don't enjoy the journey, then what's the point of the journey? I like to quote, I believe I'm quoting Buddhist monks, at least it's Buddhist wisdom, that don't wash dishes or don't do dishes for the sake of dishes to become clean. Do it for the sake of doing dishes. And I think that's the thing that a lot of us misunderstand. We are in a race trying to achieve a certain destination where the journey itself is what matters. The destination in the end, and I'm sorry if it sounds a little dark, but in the end, the destination is the same to all of us. So how much do you enjoy the dance of life? That's what's important. That's why I think fun is important. And fun, of course, we think it's not serious or it's not compatible with achieving goals, with being successful. But who says so? You know, we come up with rules. We come up with the rules, and then we insist that the whole world lives in the same paradigm. And our paradigm is that success is something dreary. It requires sweat and blood and tears and hard work and no ounce of fun or anything in it, which is such a strange paradigm to live in. So I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. So I refuse to do things which I don't thoroughly enjoy. Of course, that doesn't mean that you don't have to work hard and do boring things from time to time. Of course you do, but it can't be our default regime. That's my point, I guess. Yeah,
definitely. And I can totally understand that. Absolutely. Yeah. And why wouldn't you want fun in everything you do?
Well, yeah, life, of course, has a lot of facets that it shows to us. And when I say that life is to be enjoyed, I mean it not just the moments of pure joy and leisure kind of fun. We enjoy challenges as well. If we didn't, we wouldn't have the whole movie industry, which is based on people overcoming challenges, or the books for that matter. Yeah, it's how do you define success? How do you define seriousness or professionalism? How do you define enjoyment? It's all about our paradigms and our definitions. And I think that we have one life, and it makes sense to take it as fully as we can.
Yeah, definitely. So tell me more about your philanthropist work.
It's when I started my career, I was planning to dedicate my whole life to doing things not for profit, but for social good. And I had worked in UN and in Oxfam, which is big in UK, and in a lot of NGOs, and done charity on my own. At some point, I wanted to start a foundation, but my life took me in a different direction because business started taking more and more of my time. So I'm still very passionate about social causes. So currently, Of course, I always donate money and occasionally time when I have a chance. But right now, my big concern is environment. So I've been doing things in that direction. I finally bought an electric car, and I learned to ride a bike last year. And,
well done.
I'm about to get myself a worm farm.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, I've been researching a lot of those things. So that's my current thing. But it's not been a career in my case. It's more been passion, something which I keep coming back to. So I have a lot of opinions. I mean, it was in the beginning, it was my career, but then business took over. And I believe that the future is that businesses actually solve problems, even if for profit, but we businesses cannot create more problems to the society. So because our business is, in essence, making this world a better place, I don't do charity or philanthropy to counterbalance the damage that we do in business. I do it because I truly care about the causes that I deal with.
Absolutely, that's beautiful. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you about your new book. But I absolutely love the title. How did becoming Flawesome? Where did you get the title for? How did that come up? Please explain.
Oh, I wish I knew. So the word Flawesome was an orphan word I found on the internet. It wasn't claimed by anyone. So I just adopted it and I used it. It seems to be this wonderful word, which, you sometimes you hear the word for the first time and you just love it. So that was my first love at first sight relationship with the word Flawesome. I believe that it's probably is even in Urban Dictionary somewhere there. But I also think that Flawesome is this interesting concept which every person has to define their own flawsome. Because who am I to judge other people's flaws? I do not know. For some people, something is a flaw. For another person, it's their strength. So,
yes.
And for other people, it's something to be to brag about. So every person has to define their definition of flawsome. My general direction is that being flawsome is about being honest with yourself and seeing those qualities, admitting and accepting those qualities that you maybe didn't want to deal with throughout your life, or you were feeling ashamed of, or they made you feel less than, and looking those flaws, or dragons, I like to call them, in the eye, and realizing that you are what you are in part thanks to those qualities as well. And if you go even further down that road, eventually you discover that actually your true value lies in those things which were so hard to accept maybe before. Very often it's our struggles and our challenges that give us that value that we have to carry to the world. So I believe that those dragons or those flaws, they're not your enemies, they're our friends if you have the courage to work with them properly. So that's what I think Flawesome is about.
That's fantastic. I just love it. So tell me about your new book, please. That's called Becoming Flawesome.
Yeah, it's my darling book baby that I really love. And it is about finding your path back to you. Of course, it is inspired by my own experience, and I do use my personal life very often as an illustration, but it is a journey for each reader, and the destination is unique to each reader because only you know what it means to be truly you. This book is essentially a companion on this path back to you. I had walked that path, and I have a very interesting brain that creates curriculum around my experiences. Maybe because I've been in personal growth for 20 years on the side of a publisher and producer. So I see the world in that way. So because I've walked that path, because I've been in this industry, I actually created a whole bunch of tools and exercises and questions and reflection points that can help you along this path.
That's fantastic. And in your new book, you do share your notes on how you too lost yourself and how you dedicated to reclaim your authenticity. Can you tell me more about that without giving too much away? Because, we'll all be lining up to buy the book.
I don't worry to give too much away because it's quite intensely packed. I actually have that strange quality. Vision tells me very often, you have to explain yourself. Not everybody things like you very quickly. So it has a lot of stuff there. But yes, of course, my journey was inspired. This book is inspired by my own journey. And I believe that my journey is very relatable to a lot of people. I have been a perfectionist and an ambitious person all my life. A lot of the people who are into personal growth, who listen to podcasts, who look for teachers, who start businesses, who do coaching or whatnot, who work on themselves, they are very often just like that, perfectionists, ambitious, go-getters, people who wouldn't just sit and wait for the life to happen to them. So I know this path, and I did that too. And being perfectionist and a good girl, of course, I was ticking all the right boxes until at the age of 40, I realized that despite doing all the right things and going, following the tutorial to success to the dot, I somehow didn't feel content, which would have been half the problem. I actually felt very guilty for not feeling happy enough.
Gosh.
And that was the painful part, because one thing is just admitting, okay, I achieved my goal and I'm not so happy. The other thing is telling yourself, but you shouldn't be not so happy. What's wrong with you? Shame on you. You have everything. How dare you? So that was the harder part. And from there, my journey moved from being behind the scenes in personal growth, because I was, as I said, an entrepreneur and a producer. I wasn't an author, but that kind of triggered my journey into becoming an author, because I started asking myself questions and looking for answers, and the message matured in me and I couldn't hold it in. So I actually realized that I have to make the switch, because now I have something to say. Something of my own, and that's why I wrote the book eventually.
That's fantastic. Can't wait to read it. So what resources do you recommend, daily tips, to anyone that wants to start understanding and accepting themselves?
Well, in my book, I talk about 3 qualities which are absolutely vital for you to learn to get to know yourself, accept yourself, and then love yourself, because it goes in that succession. You can't really accept yourself unless you know what you're accepting. Very often we don't really know ourselves well enough. We think that we do, but because we have this vision of perfection, we oftentimes close our eyes of the reality. Analogy would be when you fall in love. There is this theory that when you fall in love, because of course in love it's usually hormones that drug us, but when we see that person, we actually see an image of an ideal image of what we'd like to have as our partner. And only with time, when the chemicals inside our body subside, we start seeing the person for what they are really. And a very similar thing happens to our relationship to ourselves, because we are perfectionists and we want to be better. There's this vision of a better version of me. And very often that better version of me is an ideal picture, but it is not reality. And reality, the further reality is from the ideal, the harder it is to accept it. So for you to get to know, to actually accept yourself, you first have to get to know yourself. And only then comes the part of loving yourself. So for that path, you definitely need courage. You definitely need honesty, and you definitely need kindness. And these are the 3 very important ingredients that I go very deep in my book to discuss and practice and and experiment with. That's
beautifully put. Yes, thank you. So where can the listeners find you online, your books? What's your website, please, Kristina?
So my website is kristinamand.com, and Kristina is written in an Estonian name. I have Estonian name. It's Kristina with a K, and Mand is MAND.com, and then /book. The rest is easy.
Fantastic. And I will be putting all your links in the show notes. So everyone, please do go ahead and click and get your copy of the book. Thank you for sharing your insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, you have helped so many others. Kristina Mand-Lakhiani.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
My final question to you is, and we are all about create the courage to be fearless. What is your definition of courage?
Well, courage is ability to act in the face of fear. And it is something which is trainable, definitely. I was lucky enough to be courageous from the start, I guess, but also go on a 4-day training, which drilled courage so deep in me that, I think I'm sometimes willing to do really scary things. But with that said, it is not being careless or daredevil or risking your life unnecessary. And I think there is always a question, in personal growth, we've been talking about discomfort and expanding your comfort zone for such a long time that sometimes people naturally start questioning, but how far do you do that? Isn't there a time to just enjoy your massively expanded comfort zone? And I agree. I had this question for a while. I was asking it of many authors. And the answer that I came up with to myself is, you need to apply courage when it moves you forward towards your goal or towards certain meaning. And occasionally, yes, it might be something irrelevant because you have to practice that courage muscle. And sometimes you have to do something which maybe doesn't directly lead to your goal, but you need to learn to be more courageous. So sometimes if you need to speak on stage, you sometimes might go on a stage which is maybe not related directly to your business, but you need to practice this muscle. So that's I guess is incredibly important, because whatever we do, if we take it in an absolute, we may end up in the dead end the same way as when we are paralyzed with fear. I'll share one of my now favorite quotes by Cinderella's mother, because it's connected to courage, from the 2005 movie. She said, "Have courage and be kind."